Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion, The Power of IT Management, the bridge between business strategy and tech. My name is Peggy White, and I'm Associate Dean and Director of the Information Technology Bachelor's and Master's degree programs at WGU's School of Technology. Technology is the backbone of every business, and IT managers are needed to help organizations thrive with skills like leadership, operations management, communication, analytical and strategic thinking, problem solving, and technology knowledge. IT managers drive change and keep organizations running on track every single day. Today, we are pleased to bring together a distinguished panel of leaders who have not only excelled in their careers, but they have also paved the way for others to follow. They were going to share their insights, experiences, and strategies for advancing in the field of IT management. But first, I have a few housekeeping details before we get started. You have been muted upon entry and your cameras are deactivated except for the panelist. The chat is open for all participants, and we hope you will post a question or comment for a panelist, and if you can, please do so using the Q&A feature. Questions will be saved and moderated for the Q&A portion toward the end of our panel discussion today. Today's session will be recorded and all registrants will receive a copy of the recording. As we embark on this discussion, I encourage you to engage, ask questions, and take full advantage of the wealth of knowledge and experience that our panelists bring. And now I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our panel moderator, Dr. Kiana Middleton. Kiana is a course instructor at WGU's School of Technology. She has more than 12 years of experience in IT operational management, institutional assessment, research planning, and compliance, and over 15 years of industry experience in data analytics and process improvement. She holds a Doctor of Science in Information Systems and Communications. And now, Kiana, over to you to introduce our panelists.
Hi, Peggy. We did lose Kiana. She's trying to get reconnected. So if you could just give us a quick minute here. I think she's just joining in.
I see her coming in now. Well, sometimes
There we go.
in technology, and this is why we need so many great leaders to help us.
Thank you, Peggy.
Kiana, welcome
Yes.
back, and I'll let you introduce the panelists.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you all so much for your patience. And hello to everyone who is with us today online or who may be catching us another time on the recording. In either case, we are glad you have joined us today. And so I'm thrilled to be able to participate in this event along with our fantastic panelists, each of whom earned a WGU IT management degree and has been incredibly successful in their careers. And so today we will have an opportunity to hear about each of their careers, listen to their perspectives on leadership roles in IT, and get some great career advice. And so as we engage, please feel free to submit your comments and questions through the Q&A window on the right-hand side of your screen. We also collected questions throughout the registration form, so we will definitely do our best to review those questions as well. And most importantly, we will save time for Q&A before we wrap up today. So first, I would like to introduce our esteemed guest today. And so joining us first is Mufaro Nyashoto, who is the founder of NIAC Consulting and IIBA Bay Area Chapter President. Next, we also have Stacy Laurent, who serves as the Vice President and Lead Technical Program Delivery Manager at JP Morgan Chase and Company. And last and foremost, we have Jamal Brooks, who serves as the Global Career Services Manager at Apple. And so thank you all so much for joining us today. So let's begin by setting the scene to clarify how a bachelor's or master's degree in IT management differs from a bachelor's in business administration or even an MBA. And so I think maybe to help us put that in perspective, let's start out by first having each of you introduce a little bit about yourself and then share why you decided on an IT management degree. So Mufaro, we'll actually start with you first.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Mufaro Nyashoto, and I am a business analyst consultant. So I hang out in the space between project management, and I am a bridge between business and technology. So I actually did check out all the degrees, and I went with the IT management degree because I wanted to bridge the gaps that I had in my IT space knowledge. Instead of going to get tons of little classes, I figured we jump in and I can learn more about IT and resourcing and different things from their point of view, since I tend to be in the business section. So that was my reason for going with that. And an MBA, I looked at them for years and it just didn't call to me. So I wanted to go with the IT management.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Jamal, let's start with you, or let's continue with you rather.
Not a problem at all. So thank you, and thank you, Mufaro, for your insight. Now, as mentioned, my name is Jamal Brooks, and I guess in this lane, I've had the opportunity to experience the best of both worlds. So I've completed an MBA with WGU, and then I returned for my BS to MSIT program the following year. Now, that said, I'm going to be a little vulnerable. I started my journey in the MBA IT program before opting to drop the IT side after returning to school following COVID. Um, you see, when I started in January 2020, as you all probably remember well, the world was starting to shut down, and with it, I took a break for my well-being and for my family. But I stayed in touch with my program lead and returned to in 2022 reignited. Now, that time, the MBA, without the IT focus, gave me significant insight into the way that business works. I was able to transcend my leadership peers and often even my own leadership chain. But the follow-up to the bachelor's in IT and the master's in IT management, I sought that out to help familiarize myself with the group of individuals that I wanted to lead, the ones that I wanted to impact. You see, far too often I heard stories of tech leaders either being too involved on the tech side to really make a meaningful impact as a leader, or transformative leaders who are so far removed from the tech side to drive innovative solutions. So, like Mufaro, and really like the nature of this particular discussion, my aim was to bridge that gap, to find the best of both worlds. And in my experience, the program at WGU does just that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jamal. That's very insightful. Stacy, share with us a little bit about your background and why you decided on an IT management degree.
Absolutely. And hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Laurent, and I'm a Vice President and Lead Technical Program Manager at JP Morgan Chase. And I decided on the IT management master's degree program because my bachelor's degree is already in organizational leadership. So I felt really comfortable understanding business acumen, leadership theory, change management, diverse and inclusive workplace. But I wanted to, like to Jamal's point, I wanted to be recognized as an IT leader, and I wanted to be able to participate in those conversations and be able to drive impact and to drive solutions across the technology space. I fell in love with project management 1,000 years ago, and that allowed me to see things from a business perspective. And then I started working on technology projects, and I just loved it. And I knew that my long-term vision or roadmap for my career was going to always have me more on the technology side of things. So I wanted to just make sure I understood how to manage IT solutions, how to be eventually a CISO or a Chief Information Security Officer over an organization in the near future. So I thought this program fit perfectly to what I wanted to do. And it also allowed me to be able to still stay somewhere in that middle of understanding business acumen, but also understanding technology and the need for that marriage between the two of them. So that was my purpose in picking this particular degree. And when I saw the courses that it was included in the program, I knew it was just a perfect fit.
Very good. So I can tell that there's kind of a common theme that's kind of emerging from the conversation, right? About the need to really position yourself as a leader, kind of in between these two spaces and marrying the IT side and transformative IT, if you will, as a leader. So let's talk a little bit about that, because each of you have truly been a leader, right, in your field respectively, and thus possess the necessary and critical skills that you need to be successful. So Stacy, can you lead us in the conversation by maybe sharing one thing or skill that has helped you get where you are today?
Well, if I'm limited to just one, because I could go all day, right? I would probably say effective communication. I spend 90% of my day communicating with senior leaders, from the management directive side of things down to associates or our interns or our software engineers across different countries, across different cultures, and different cross-functional teams. So it's important that I am able to communicate with them. And I'm always asking for something, right? I'm a project manager, or in my case right now, I'm a program manager. So every time I reach out to someone, there's always an ask. I need them to make a decision, or I need a deliverable turned over pretty quickly. So I have to figure out what's that fine way for me to be able to communicate that drives influence, that drives decision making, but also creates excitement about, hey, stopping you from doing something that you're doing in the middle of your day because Stacy reached out to you because she needs something. So that's been the most important skill that I've had to hone over the course of my career, is how do we communicate in a way that drives results, that gets people excited consistently? Because to get them to do it one time, that's great. But how do I consistently get people to show up for me, to deliver the things that I need or make decisions for me consistently? So the effective communication has absolutely been instrumental in my success. And if I had one more thing, I would say the problem solving. You have to be able to solve problems. So those are the two things, but the biggest thing is effective communication.
And so and for the individuals that are joining us today, so it's not just effective communication, or let's maybe tease that out a little bit, effective communication, but your ability to strategically persuade and engage various audiences. Is that kind of what you're discussing in terms of
Absolutely,
a very
yes.
critical skill?
Thank you
Okay,
for
very
clarifying.
good. So, oh no, that's great. And so Mufaro, share with us, one thing or one skill that you think has helped you tremendously get you where you are today.
No, I think communication is one of them. And I think the other one is curiosity, the ability to go out and connect the dots between people, ideas, and things. That makes you want to be innovative. It makes you reach out to people. I'm an introvert, but I'm so curious. I will go out and find out things from people. So that helps me to engage with people more efficiently. So I think between that and continual learning, if you have communication and curiosity, I think that should be the most important imperatives for business and for IT. So that'll keep you driving forward.
Mm. So I'm just curious, how does one who may not necessarily possess an innate desire to be curious, how do they really kind of hone that very critical skill, especially in this space?
I think looking at how the world's going, we have to all be willing to put ourselves out there. If you want something, you will go and drive towards it. And I think I love watching kids. If you ask them something, they will try to figure out how to get there. And I love working with kids for that reason also. So I think just think, what do you want to get to? How do you get there? You need to start, critical thinking, problem solving. I think that's how you drive curiosity. Go and do things you do not usually do. Go join that organization. So just be out of your comfort zone.
Wonderful. So let's kind of continue that thread of discussion then. So, um, what professional roles do you all really foresee exist specifically within this IT management space? And as you're giving some thought to that question, I also want you to think about, as we look ahead, what types of roles should we anticipate seeing in the future? So, Jamal, I'm going to first pitch that question to you.
All right. So, Kiana, I want to thank you for that question. I've had the honor and privilege of supporting the growth and development of several hundred employees. So when it comes down to IT management, like this is the space. It's definitely a great space to be in, and it's going to be a space that for continued growth. Now, Stacy called out the PM influence, right? Having that natural desire, that natural interest, that just hunger for that PM space. And I think that it's really important to latch on to that as you look to create influential and meaningful change within your organizations. Now, the roles, because that's the question. So I want to go back to the roles. So the roles here that I see, we of course the IT manager, the IT director, right? But then you also have roles leading in specific areas of technology like cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, DevOps, data analytics, governance and compliance, service delivery, and of course in the future, near future, shoot, we're looking at automation, AI, ML, operations from that perspective, edge computing, quantum computing, ethical technology. We have so much emerging technology that's coming into play. We need to make sure that the ethics are behind the work that we do and the work that we're moving into. As a career coach, one of my clients is actually in ed tech right now, driving ethical technology principles and policies. So it's definitely an area where, I love this conversation about where tech can meet other areas and how you can start to bridge the gap between being tech but not really tech. Ethical technology is another area where, you don't have to code, but you do need to have a good understanding of where the world's going.
Mm. So Jamal, so just to also marry that conversation that you just had back with a question that I asked earlier. So an individual who is pursuing an IT management degree at WGU, when they leave and complete their matriculation, will they be prepared for these roles in which you just referenced?
Oh, that is a fantastic question, and I would say wholeheartedly yes. Um, the one of the greatest things about the degree program is that not only are they going to give you the foundational information, but the certificates that come along with it are going to really skyrocket your knowledge. And I think that it positions you in a place to really apply those learnings in real time, especially if you're already in the workforce.
Mm, nice. And so, Stacy, share with us a little bit about your thoughts and in regards to what Jamal just stated in terms of the current roles and even the future roles we should anticipate seeing, especially within this space.
Yes. So I agree with Jamal wholeheartedly. If I had it my way, everyone would be a project manager. There's so much value to me in how a project manager has to start from the very planning part of a project to the very end of closing it out and everything in between. So project management is definitely here to stay. Program management, portfolio management. And then, like I said, what Jamal was mentioning, cloud. A lot of companies are shifting from on-prem servers over to the cloud and moving their applications over to the cloud for economies of scale. And so so being able to understand the multi-cloud, because there's Azure and there's AWS and there's GCP. So if you are able to understand why you would use one cloud system versus the other, that's a really great space for you to be in. And of course, I love everyone's excitement right now around artificial intelligence and machine learning. If you can understand prompt engineering and how do you use these particular large language models to be able to get it to do the output that you want it to do, you're already ahead of the curve. Also, thinking about, like I said, the ethical side of things and all of the data that goes behind it. I have a husband and we have these discussions all the time about the large language model and chat GPT and how do you use it and the concern that they're going to take over the world. And I'm like, this is a beautiful place to be right now. I'm at an age where I remember we had encyclopedias. I don't know if everyone remembers encyclopedias. That was kind of like our version of a large language model. You had an encyclopedia and you could look up everything you wanted to look up. But again, even that iteration of the encyclopedia was like a year old. And then I grew up a little poor, so it's 3 or 4 years old when I got to it. but now it's literally at your fingertips, the ability to be able to ask these large language model anything you wanted to ask. So if you understand prompt engineering and you understand the data that is behind the large language model, you set yourself up for a career anywhere you want to go at any salary point that you want. So I'm excited about it. And like I said, those are really just scratching the surface of the different careers and opportunities that are in tech right now.
Awesome. And so we're going to come back to that conversation of AI. So hold that thought as we come back to that conversation in regards to kind of looking ahead. But I think that in regards to really providing a very firm landscape in terms of the roles, right, that exist today and exist in the future, I think really does give people an idea of where they can go in their career. So now let's talk and make a slight pivot on how to get there, right? So let's talk a little bit about the journey. And so we know that the job market is very, very, very tough right now. And so what is one piece of practical advice to encourage people just starting out, who's getting their foot in the door, who really want to advance into leadership, especially in this IT space? And so Mufaro, I'll start with you to maybe facilitate a little bit of that discussion.
I think I would advise that you know what your strengths are. Know whether you are a people person, know what kind of technology you want to do. Because I think if you follow your strengths, you will actually find your passion, and that will get you really far. And also, you can find people who are like you, and also then fill in the gaps. Sort of like strength finders. Go and find what you're good at, find what you're not good at. And I think if people do that, they're halfway there. You don't just want to pick a degree or something to say it's going to get me money. You want to do something that's going to actually fulfill you, and that'll be purpose driven. And when you have a purpose, you will move forward.
Wonderful. So really, if you really want to advance in the leadership space, the first thing you really need to do is firmly assess and evaluate what your strengths are,
yourself.
right? And then understanding maybe potentially what other skills are needed, and find other individuals who emulate that skill. Is that what you're stating?
Absolutely.
And so Jamal, share with us, what do you think is necessary for individuals who are wanting to get their foot in the door, advance into leadership? What's one piece of practical advice that you would also give to our audience today?
All right. So this is my wheelhouse. All right. So career coaching, career strategy, career growth development. I can go on at length about how to make your mark in the industry. And honestly, I welcome anyone on the call or viewing the recording to connect with me on LinkedIn to explore ways to make the most out of their career trajectory. But I do want to say that you're right about the market in some ways. It can definitely be tough. One piece of practical advice that I would offer is to leverage information as an invaluable resource, and then keep your eyes open to the possibilities that may arise. Now, I'm going to start with that latter part. Last spring, I was selected to host a panel during DiversiTech 2024. It's a tech conference that specializes in diversity within technology. And at that conference, I had a conversation with an individual that wanted to get into tech. Right now, they wanted to get out of their company and it focused on public policy. But when I asked them what their job really entailed, their response was cybersecurity and governance. I'm like, you're in tech. Getting into tech doesn't mean that you have to be in a tech sector or work in the main group or in Silicon Valley. Being open to those alternative sectors can help pave the way to a career doing exactly what you love. Like Mufaro said, like the key is finding that strength and that passion, finding your love, and that's where that information comes into play. You need to learn as much as you can, seek out ways to experience as much variety as possible. And once you have a greater idea of where you want to be, then leverage that information into the active networking. And I'll call that relationship building. I'm sure we're going to cover that soon. Now, as for advancing into leadership, though, the same principles apply. We just need to understand that the title alone, the leader title, is not a prerequisite to lead. You can start leading where you're at now.
Very nice. And so Stacy, what are your thoughts in terms of getting the foot in the door and advancing in leadership, leveraging a bit of what Jamal has stated?
I agree with Nafaro and Jamal. My thoughts are, one, you have to be an expert at what you do. So, and leadership is, like I said, it's such a broad statement, just like I want to work in tech or get into tech is such a broad statement, right? Tech is everywhere. Doesn't matter the company that you work for, there's an aspect of technology everywhere, and leadership is everywhere too. But first, you have to be an expert at what you do. Do that really well. And when you do that really well, then you see growth. And then other people notice that you're an expert in your area and they give you more responsibility. But as far as getting your foot in the door to working in technology, the vertical space, you have to you focus on transferable skills. What are the things that you're doing right now that you really love? And then how can you start in doing those on a day-to-day basis? I have a friend and she kept saying that I want to get into tech. And she works in accounting. And I said, Dee, what do you do every day? And she mentioned, oh, well, I spend a lot of time in Excel. I said, okay, so you use data on a day-to-day basis. You're cleaning up data and you're presenting it to your stakeholders. I said, so what do you do with the data when you give it? I just give them an Excel document. I said, have you thought about putting it into a pivot table and then visualizing the data? That kind of makes you on the verge of a data scientist in my eyes, because you've given them the data in such a way that they can digest it and understand it better. Instead of just giving me an Excel document that has, 15,000 rows and columns of data. I don't understand any of it. But give it to me in a pivot table and then visualize it and then drop it into a PowerPoint so you make it really sexy, right? That's a step and that's what you do on a day-to-day basis. So think about what you do day to day and how do you make that process to improve it and make it better. And then when you start to do those things, then people start to recognize, wow, we've always gotten it this particular way. You've done something new and different. That's my same advice for people that get their certifications. When you get a certification and you want to go apply for a new job, I always think of it this way. So if I put you up against another candidate and you have just a certification and no experience, I'm more likely to go with the other applicant that has a certification and some experience. So what you do with that certification when you first get it, or what you get with your new knowledge, is use it in your day-to-day job right now. If you have a Scrum Master certification or a PMP certification, or maybe a business analytics certification, use it on your day-to-day. How do you make the processes more efficient? How do you make it better? Because you're already an expert in that field of what you're currently doing. Now you're just adding on another layer or component to make it more efficient. And then you start to do that on a day-to-day basis. And then you start to get more experience. So those are my thoughts. I feel like I rambled a little bit, but the gist of what I'm trying to say is be an expert at what you do. Use your transferable skills. And then when you get on new certification and get new opportunities, leverage those certification, leverage that new knowledge that you're learning and as you go through your degree program and your day-to-day job that you do right now to show your growth and show your expertise. So when you actually finish with your certification or finish with your degree program, then you start to show, I'm already leveraging what I already know right now. I'm using it for the day-to-day in a real life application. It's not just theory anymore. I'm applying it right now in real time, and people start to notice it. And when you do a little bit more than what you've always done, people start to realize, oh, wow, maybe I'll think about her or think about him for this other project. And that's kind of been my experience on how I've grown in my career, was taking the little things that I've done, make processes a little bit more better, more efficient. And then they started thinking about me as an expert in my field of doing something that's not in my job responsibility. I just saw an opportunity for me to improve the process.
Wonderful. And so before we move into the next question, I just want to explore a little bit about what both you, Stacy, and Jamal stated. And Jamal, I'm going to come back to you actually on this extended question, if you will. So you talk about, Stacy just talked about, figuring out how to do what you're doing now and to do it better. You referenced a few minutes ago to find exactly the sector and potentially you have some desire to essentially work in this space. So if an individual is currently not working in the area that they desire or the sector that they desire, what kind of advice would you give them to be able to even find ways to advance into that world, to be able to essentially be more aware of what exists and what they can do? Jamal?
Mm. All right. So when I'm coaching others, one of the exercises that we tend to go through is called, well, I like to call it string theory. And within that practice, what we do is we consider all of our experiences in our past. So you mentioned, what if you're not currently in the role that you're trying to move into? Well, everyone has a history, everyone has some experiences that they've gone through. My challenge for them is to consider the joy within each and every one of the experiences that led up to their present state. Within that joy, there's going to be elements as well as criteria that then can be composed and then turned into a profile of sorts that would lead them towards the main aim of what they may be looking to do. I also mentioned earlier about the power of information and trying out new things. Trying out new things does not mean that you have to gain a brand new job, a paid role. In fact, volunteerism is instrumental. It's an instrumental piece to acquiring new experiences. So try it out, explore, have conversations, reach out, chase your passion, chase your joy. As you're doing those small things, your overarching vision will become clear, and then you have the roadmap for the steps you should be taking moving forward.
Wonderful. So I think that's a perfect segue to our next question, because now that we've talked about essentially what individuals can do to really gain entry into spaces and to advance in leadership, it sounds like it requires building some relationships and making some connections, right? And asking some questions to go down that journey and that path of curiosity. So let's dive into that a little bit more. And so, what practical tips do you all have about the best ways that individuals can really build those relationships, right? Because it sounds like there's a lot of individuals that individuals need to meet. And so rather that's in internal departments or external alliances. So how does one kind of get ahead and really develop those relationships of influence? And so Mufaro, I'll start with you in regards to that question.
Thank you. So I think we all have to consider ourselves to be a sort of a business of one. We have to go out there and market our skills. We have to know who we are. We have to go out and find things that really interest us. So, if you go out there and you present yourself and you're engaged, people will want to reach out back to you. So I think that way, and volunteering. And, I think a lot of us forget that the world is so connected right now with the internet that you never know where your next role might come from. It might be your neighbor, it might be someone across the world, you never know. So being aware and reaching out and being open and sharing, just go share your thoughts. I think that really helps people so they get to know you and they want to engage with you.
Awesome. Volunteering. So volunteering in spaces that you might have a desire to somehow be long term, right? To get that exposure and to help with those skills. And so, Stacy, what are your thoughts in terms of how individuals can really build those relationships and those alliances, rather internally or externally, to really engage and bolster influence?
Yes, I'm a big advocate of volunteering, networking, and giving back. There's so many things that happen when you decide to give so much of your time. I'm not where I am in my career without the power of networking and building relationships. I've connected with so many people just by giving an hour of my time. I remember one particular instance. We had this. There's this charity, and they package up beans and rice with spices into these little bags, and it's meant to feed a family of 4. And I decided that on my lunch break that I would give back an hour of my time. I was like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity. I spent an hour doing it. I loved everything about it. I started off the day with I was annoyed about something. I think it was traffic. I make a long commute to go into the office. So I was annoyed about the traffic. And then I remembered, oh, we have this volunteer opportunity that I'm doing for lunch. And I forgot all about why I was mad earlier the day about traffic. I spent an hour connecting with people across different parts of the business that I had never met before, learning about them. And it just made me feel so whole to be able to do that, putting things in perspective. But also, I connected with this lady from a different line of business, and we just were chatting and stuffing bags. And a couple of weeks later, she said she reached out to me because all of our information is public within the firm. So she remembered my name, send me a ping and say, I enjoyed meeting you. And I said, oh, I did too. I remember meeting you. We packaged up beans and rice. It was really fun. She says, well, I'm going to invite you to somewhere. The opportunity that I got was I was invited to an event where our CEO of our company came to Houston. There was an exclusive amount of people that got to come to this event, and I got to be one of them. And that's literally just by me, just an hour of my time. I didn't want anything other than just giving back. And that's been my experience with every time you give back. It's such a it's just a selfless thing to do, but you get to connect with people and you never know who you're standing along the other side of. You never know where your next job opportunity was. I was offered 3 jobs last year. I didn't apply to any of them. Now, I didn't accept them because I was happy where I was, but I was offered 3 different job opportunities. And that's just the power of networking, building relationships with people. I had to respectfully decline, but I was like, okay, well, if you're ever in the market, let me know. And that's just literally just based on you giving of your time, connecting with people, being very authentic and being memorable. And it just has been just really amazing for me. So I'm a big, big supporter of networking, but do it in a way that's intentional. There's no ask when you network with people. It's really just let me get to know you. Let's exchange information. You can't come up, someone says, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. And then a week later, hey, I want a job. I see that you work at this company. I'm looking for opportunities. That's not true networking and building relationships. You have to nurture that relationship. It's a long game. It is. And you have to have patience, and it's always you giving something of yourself first. So how can I help? How to support? I noticed that you spend a lot of time talking about charities, or I noticed you spend a lot of time running. Oh, what are your thoughts about this? It's a very organic relationship. So spend a lot of time networking, but be authentic with it and don't just go for an ask. When you do that, most people are like, wait a minute, I don't know you enough to give you something. But if you nurture the relationships longer into the faith, you get to know people, and you can genuinely build relationships with people. And sometimes it ends up being you're put into conversations where there's, oh, she's a really great project manager. Maybe she's looking for an opportunity. I would love her to come on my team. Or do you know someone that's looking for an opportunity? If they are anything like you, I would love for you to advocate for someone. I need people for my team. So there's so much value that comes with it.
Wonderful. So I can't not have the conversation about mentoring and mentees when we use the word nurturing. So Jamal, I want you to certainly answer the question, but in terms of relationships, let's also talk about how does one like find a mentor, one, and then also trying to understand, is there a necessity also to have a mentee as well when we talk about relationships? So Jamal, your thoughts?
Right. I want to thank you for that one, and put a spin on the mentorship, because that is definitely a key component here. I often talk about your executive board, your personal executive board, right? Generally speaking, when you look at an organization, executive board is going to be the group that's going to be providing guidance, providing support. And within your own careers, you should try to treat your career as if it is a business, as if it is an organization. So from a strategic perspective, we do want mentors. We do want coaches. We do want sponsors. And I'm going to say that those are all different entities as well. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting all 3 of those. Now, how to go about doing so? Well, Stacy started to touch on it. Right. Networking in any way, shape, or form is about building relationships. And when you consider relationships, if you're going to take anything away from this part of it, I want it to be 2 words: consistency and intentionality. You see, when you're building a relationship, and I'm going to stop using the word networking because some people start to shiver when you hear networking, but when you start building relationships, right, it's no different than any other that you may have. Simply saying hi one time is not going to cut it. I can't just go to my wife and say, hey, babe, and that'd be it. Like, I have to have more engagement. We have to be consistent. There has to be a consistent amount of engagement in order for a connection to be established and nourished. I can't just talk to my kids once a week. We wouldn't be close at all. I wouldn't know their habits, their strengths, their goals. Just like Stacy mentioned, it's what I can do for them. It's giving outward. The same holds true in business. Now, consistency is just one thing, though. You can't expect to have meaningful connections with just surface level connections. It doesn't matter how routinely you hold them. So asking how the weather is or what meals they may eat at the lunch hall, it's not substantial. You need to be intentional. Right? So that intentionality means keeping the end goal in mind and having purpose with each interaction. If you're trying to seek out a mentor, consider why. Why do I want them to be my mentor? I don't want a mentor just to have one. I'm not going to ask you just to ask you. There has to be purpose behind it. There has to be intention. And the inverse is true too when you're considering serving out as a if as you're looking to seek out mentees. Why would you want to uh, perform in that fashion?
Mhm.
Right? There needs to be intention behind it. So as you're engaging with consistency, as you're engaging with intentionality, you also want to consider, well, in what areas? Because that's that intentionality as well. So from a mentor perspective, I definitely suggest it. Seek out individuals who have been where you're at now and who are currently where you're trying to go. When you're looking at sponsors, consider individuals who are in rooms that you are not in yet.
Mm.
Keyword yet. Seek out sponsorship, individuals who can kick down doors and speak your praise. You're not around. And you want coaches as well, those who can support you in your own development, your own growth. Now, when it comes down to the departments, well, that depends on the aim within your career. I'm gonna tell you this real quick. Money talks in business. So make friends. I mean, build relationships with your finance teams, build relationships with your analysts, build relationships with your sales and your procurement leaders. Right? Cross-functional relationships are key. Then from there, consider what stakeholders' needs that you're trying to influence and who gatekeeps that information.
Mm.
Because at the end of the road, information is an invaluable resource, and that's what's going to be able to set you apart from others.
Wonderful. So it sounds like having a professional village is key. It's very critical, and not only having a professional village, but one that's very diverse and intentional. Is from what I hear from you, Mufaro, as well as Stacy, that you need to be very intentional about who's a part of your professional village. So that's really good. So before we open up to questions and round with some really quick answers from all of you, but what do you foresee to be really the major challenge, I think, especially as it relates to IT management, that individuals who are getting ready to potentially consider or currently pursuing this IT management degree or even thinking about it? What is one major area of opportunity or challenge that you believe that prospective individuals or individuals who are currently in the field need to prepare themselves for? So we'll just do a quick round robin, rapid fire, and Stacy, we'll start with you.
I think one of the challenges that people have to recognize right now is that if you work in technology, there's going to be these times. It's kind of like when you work in oil and gas. There are the times where, at peak times, where there's lots of money to be made in oil and gas, and there's a time when the cost of oil is really low and there's not enough money. So it's a volatile industry. And there's some volatility that I think comes with technology. But if you can just be patient and understand that, just keep learning and keep on investing in yourself, that it all works out. It will always work out. So you have to be patient. Be patient with the job market. Be patient that you don't get some people, the aspiration is to have a six-figure income on your very first job. That doesn't happen that way. That is a happy path situation. It isn't always happy for everyone. So patience and understanding that, remember, being an expert at what you do, but also understanding that it takes a little bit of time to get to the highest level that you want to get in your career.
Awesome. Mufaro?
I think we have to think in the future, almost all jobs are going to have some sort of IT component. AI is coming and it's going to change things, whether it's automation, processes, resource allocation. So we have to keep learning, as Stacy says, keep learning, be aware, put yourself out there.
Awesome. Jamal?
So I'm going to piggyback off of what Mafara just mentioned. And when it comes down to rapid fire, I'm going to keep it easy. AI, hands down. Right? It is the most pervasive and emerging of all technologies at the moment. And it's either been implemented or is sought to be implemented in just about every phase of business operations. Now, this isn't to say, oh my gosh, my job is going away, right? That's not the call. but I often do bring up one of my favorite movies in a particular scene with Octavia Spencer. You may have heard it, Hidden Figures, right? So to bring it full circle, change is coming. So we either adjust and adopt, we're going to be left. So my suggestion to help overcome this obstacle or this challenge is to stay ahead of things and stay in tune with the emerging technologies.
Wonderful. Thank you all so very much for your insightful answers. So now let's take some questions from the chat. And so we'll begin there.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists. We do have great questions here in the chat. First one, we have an attendee who's looking to be a more well-rounded individual. In your opinion, what resources do you think have helped you understand the business side of things, such as finances, actual management, and decision making, and how has that made you better?
I absolutely recommend reading The Phoenix Project. If you're looking to be to work in technology and you also want to be that that liaison between the business and technology, then The Phoenix Project is the perfect book to read. I try to read it at least once a year because it's a constant reminder to me of the marriage between technology and the business. It's a really great book. If you have not read it, I absolutely think you should read it. It's 250 pages of the most important information that you can read every single year.
Thank you, Stacy. Anyone else on that question?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in real quick because that's exactly that was my aim originally when it came down to marrying the technology side as well as the management side. So when you're looking to build out those, we'll call them the softer skills of leadership in the IT space, really consider what relationships can you build, who can you reach out to learn from. I feel that the mentorship stake is going to be key there. So consider what leaders are doing it well currently, what leaders are doing the work that you're trying to move into at a high clip, who is impacting and who's influential. Those are going to be those mentors. We talked about being very intentional around selecting your mentors. Those are going to be the mentors that I would recommend reaching out to and building relationship with. The more that you can learn from those individuals, the more that you can start to adjust and refine your own skill sets.
That is great. Thank you for that insight, Jamal. Anything you'd like to add, Mufaro?
I think I would just add wherever you are, see where you can add additional value. That might get you to that next step or a new project. That way you can test your skills and move ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Mufaro. Next question we had here, Peggy, I think you would be able to share some insight. We had a couple of attendees ask, what is the difference between the MBI IT management versus the MS IT management, and who should strive for each?
So the main difference between the MSITM, the MS in IT management, and the MBA in IT management is the MS in ITM has more IT knowledge in it, whereas the MBA is focused much more on business. And which one should you do? I think it depends on both your background and what you want to do with the degree. I think Jamal said something about that earlier. It depends on who you want to lead. If you're going to be working in an IT group with highly technical skills, I would encourage you to look at the MSITM, but it might depend on your background. If you come with that strong IT background, then and you need more leadership skills, then the MBA might be for you. So it's a very much an individualized decision on where you want to go and where you want to take your career. On the other hand, if you're working inside a business group where you're not working with a lot of technical people, maybe you're just a liaison with IT, perhaps you're a project manager, then I think you would look more on the MBA side. So depends on where you are, what your background is, and where you want to lead. So this is why we have both degrees, and we're always happy to talk to you about that decision.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Another question here for our great panelists. How can IT management adapt and align to changing business strategies when it evolves faster than IT infrastructure?
I guess can you read the question one more time? I
Yeah, no
think I heard it,
problem.
but I just want to make sure I'm answering the
Yep.
question correctly.
How can IT management adapt and align to changing business strategy when it evolves faster than IT infrastructure?
I think it's just, again, like I said, the Phoenix Project does a really great job of talking about how technology moves faster than what the business wants to. And I think if there's an honesty in bringing in making sure there's an agile process of transparency, of bringing in technology into the conversations early on, then you're allowed you to better be able to make informed decisions. I know one of the challenges that I have, and that's with any organization, not just limited to where I am right now, was that the business has all these brilliant ideas about things that they want to accomplish, but they also don't think about the feasibility, the level of effort, the scope, the competing priorities that technology currently has. Technology will always just continue to just keep on growing. The technology is synonymous with innovation, modernization, so that's always going to be a constant, but the business has to catch up to it. And how they catch up to it is that those frequent checkpoints, bringing in technology into the very early conversations to understand the true discovery of when you're creating your roadmap or your vision for what you want the business, how it scales. It's understanding why do you want this new feature? Why do you want this new software? Have you thought about the implication of it? What is the cost? What is the budget? What is the technology team doing collectively as a whole to run the business? So you want to drive innovation, but with technology is also thinking about how do we keep the lights on? So you have to continue, like I said, you have to have a marriage where there's constant communication and constant checkpoints in of why are we doing these things? The business just cannot go off on its own, make the decision and bring it over to technology and say, okay, I want this. Go forth and conquer. There has to be constant conversations from the very beginning in the early planning stages. And that's how you ensure that what you want to accomplish in the near future is feasible, that you can execute on it, and that there's success. Without those things, it just does not happen. You will always have a problem, and the project will never get completed to its true scale and potential without the business recognizing the true impact and the need for technology to always be in the conversations.
Can I
Thank you,
jump in on
Stacy.
that?
Yes, of course.
I think it's important that we recognize that IT is a true partner. We collaborate together, so it's not sort of IT is this group over here that's got their own cost center and issues and businesses here. So if we have senior leadership aligned so that they know what's going on when strategy is being developed, we would have fewer of these issues, and that way we could get things done with less frustration, with better cost savings, more efficiency. So it's really, I think, leadership on top needs to be aligned.
There you go. And I would agree wholeheartedly. And it really goes back to the point that I made earlier when it comes down to communication and building those relationships. The right hand needs to know what the left hand is doing. And it's not just about it's not just like before I mentioned, it's not just about IT being over here in a corner troubleshooting, ticket taking. That is not that's not their that's not their sole purpose or focus. So the more that cross departmental or intersectionality occurs, the easier it will be for that larger strategic vision to become implemented.
Thank you, our panelists, for that and for those answers there. Last question here, and I know Jamal, you touched a little bit on this. How is AI changing IT management?
And I'll come on quickly. Honestly, everything that you're seeing and then some, you're going to see efficiency gains. You're going to see a lot of change in the way that the repetitive work is completed, especially in the immediate. As those models adopt, as those models change, as the implementation becomes more widespread, you're going to see slow, but well, I'm not going to say slow. I'm going to say you're going to see some meaningful improvements, some meaningful change. It's very similar to any other emerging technology, though. Now, before before the printing press for writing things by hand. Once a printing press comes about, there's a little bit of a pushback, followed by immense growth. Same thing with the textile industry. Same thing with the oil steam industries. You're going to see a little bit of pushback, and they're going to see rapid growth. So when it comes down to IT management, I would expect to see that rampant growth that we've seen with each and every other technological innovation, each and every other technological evolution. So that's going to be the game there. And Alexis, I saw that you mentioned this question before. Do these techniques work in a rural area? I would argue that the answer is yes, especially since we're a global. Most technological firms exist in a global space. Um, Going off, I know there was an earlier comment around volunteerism, and I'm going to jump off the tangent right after this. But even from a volunteerism perspective, um, there's this wonderful organization, catchafire.org. It's virtual volunteerism. So even for those who are in those rural spaces, you can still have ample opportunity to engage on as technological of a level as you're willing to offer out.
Thank you, Jamal. Anything else you'd like to add on that question, Mufara or Stacy?
Jamal did an amazing job.
You're too
Bringing it
good,
home.
Jamal. Awesome. Well, then I will go ahead and pass it over to Peggy. I'll get some slides shared real quick.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for this insightful panel discussion. And I want to take time to thank our panelists, Mafaro, Stacy, and Jamal, for sharing their invaluable insights today. And Keonia, thank you so much for facilitating the conversation. Today's discussion emphasized the value of an IT degree for business leadership roles. So if you're interested in learning more, the School of Technology at WGU has 3 degrees for you to explore. We have our BS in Information Technology, our MS in Information Technology Management, and an accelerated Information Technology master's and bachelor's degree that will save you the time and cost of an entire term. Please keep in mind that these degrees are designed with input from industry experts like we've heard from today. We get input through our advisory boards made up of CIOs, CTOs, and leading technical employers. And we are here to prepare you for a leadership position, whether you come to us with a tech background or not. And if you need assistance with paying for these degrees, we can help you with scholarships. And so I would encourage you to visit our scholarship page at wgu.edu/scholarships to learn more, whether it's B for Women in Tech or Tech is Everywhere. Our Opportunities Grant or our New Year Grant. We have scholarships for everyone, and I would invite you to explore the opportunities there. So for those of you who signed up but couldn't join us today, a recording of this event will be emailed out to all who registered. And I think I want to thank once again our esteemed panelists, Mafaro, Jamal, Stacy, and our moderator, Keona Middleton, and to everyone who participated today for your questions and your follow-up. And I invite you to continue to support and inspire one another as we advance our tech careers.